I know change is a lot. Change is dramatic. And I try to give grace to people who don't embrace change or can't absorb change as easily as I do. I maybe that's my disposition. I grew up in chaos. I'm used to it. I like to look for the silver lining when change happens. That's just my personality. I get it. Everyone doesn't do that. But when you are one of the top voices for, I don't know, Alabama, for a sport, you're a legendary coach like Nick Saban, I do think you have to set the tone for things. And there's a lot of panic around NIL and the transfer portal, which, by the way, are two separate things entirely. One has nothing to do with the other when you're talking about regulations and how they should structure them. But I think everyone needs to take a deep breath about NIL and how out of control it is. This was Nick Saban on the Rich Eisen show giving his thoughts on the downside of NIL.
There's some unintended consequences of, what the original good idea of name, image, and likeness was really intended to be. So, and I think that that's going to create a little bit of an unfair playing field. Everything we've always done in college is, try to be equal, so you have some kind of equal parity, competition, whatever. So will there be some changes? Maybe. Do I have the solution? No, but I think that it's a little bit of the wild, wild west right now, and I think that's what people are trying to, bring under some kind of control so that we don't let things get away from us and it doesn't impact opportunities for other students.
College football has the least amount of parity of any major sport in our country, first of all. So the idea that they're always striving for fairness and an even playing field in that sport is quite silly, especially coming from Alabama. Now, they're just better. Alabama is just better, so it's not that it's unfair, but there's basically no parity, and we can see that in the college football playoffs. So let's start with that. Second, I don't want to hear about how tragic the NIL is from men who have built massive amounts of wealth and success off of a system that was in place for a very long time. It feels a little devoid of self-awareness. Again, like anything, change can trigger people, and it can be dramatic, and it takes an adjustment. But like anything else in life that has a dramatic swing, it corrects itself, and that's what NIL will do. I do think it does need some regulations, some guidelines, some ways to protect young people from bad actors and universities from taking advantage of it. But let's not sit here and clutch our pearls and act like there's not been any universities over the past 50 years who have bent the rules with recruiting a little bit and not done everything above the board. I'm not accusing any particular school, but we all know this goes on. We all know they slide a little cash every once in a while to the youth pastor to redo the church, and all of a sudden everybody has a new car. These things happen. So this idea that it is all of a sudden going to change things that were not already happening is nonsense. Only now you can get a real check. Only now you can pay taxes only. Only now you can put it in the bank and not worry about losing your scholarship. Also, NIL only affects the top players in high school going into college. This isn't something that is going to drastically affect every single college student. You're not going to pay a kid that's going to go to a Division II school $1 million to go to Alabama. That's not how this works. So there's a very small section of recruits that are even being affected by what Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney and some of these other top coaches are talking about when it comes to NIL. So what does this really mean? It really means you have to find a new way to recruit. Buying players? What does that even mean? If an 18-year-old graduates from high school and he's a genius and these tech companies are bidding on his or her services, no one's freaking out about how unfair it is and how they need to go to school. No, they're saying this kid is a genius. Allow them to make money right now if that's what their future has laid out for them. No one's complaining about that. If an 18-year-old inherits a bunch of money from their family, that happens all the time. No one freaks out about that. If there's an 18 or 19-year-old that starts a clothing line with Amazon, makes a couple $1 million, wonderful. You have a business. You have created this. It feels very tropey that only college athletes are the ones who just can't be trusted to handle money. It's just going to ruin their lives if they're given money coming out of high school. Also, there's an assumption that none of these young people have, I don't know, family structures or friends or mentors around them to keep them from falling into whatever this big, bad NIL monster is. This was an inevitable thing that was going to happen. You could have seen it on the horizon for the last 10 years. The NCAA was forced into this. That's why there are no guidelines on it. It was always going to happen. So if you're pushing back on it, you either don't have the internet or Instagram, or you truly don't understand how to use it to recruit for your university. But it is not as bad as everyone is saying. It's not anywhere near the exaggeration, the big bad NIL monster that everyone is putting out there. They're very capable of making money. They should be able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. Everything will correct itself as it always does. It's going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. You just have to find a new way to recruit. And I get it. That's change and it's dramatic, but that is the way it goes.